Hi, I'm Ted Haftegabber, founder and producer of Live Talks Los Angeles. Thanks for joining us. Since we started over a decade ago, we have brought you hundreds of conversations with storytellers, writers, actors, musicians, humorists, chefs, and thought leaders in business and science. You can watch and hear most of these in our YouTube channel and our podcast. For details, visit livetalksla.org. And now, here's the show you've tuned in to see.
I'm so happy to see you. I haven't seen you in...
It's been a long time.
How long has it been?
It's been about 5-6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sheila produced The Butler for me. And she was like a rabid dog to get the money, and I fell in love with her. She was responsible for the movie going. It would not have happened had she not been so dogged in making sure that it happened. So I love you for that, Sheila.
Well, thank you
so much.
It was a script that was brought to me, and they said Lee Daniels is going to direct this. But the story was so compelling, I couldn't turn it down. And it was important that we got that film made.
Yeah. Every studio passed on that. Every studio. Like, no one wanted to see that film.
No one.
And so Sheila and I and Pam raised the money for it. So thank you, Sheila, everybody. And then we became friends, and boy, wow, you wrote this book.
Yes.
Wow. Why, why did you write the book? I got a million questions for you, but I learned so much about you. But, like, why did you write this book?
Well, I'd been through so much in my life, and, you know, people on the outside said, oh, you know, she's got it made, you know, BET, blah, 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 blah. People don't understand that behind the scenes, I had gone through a lot. And this book became my therapy. It was a case where people came to me, and this started years ago, where they said, Sheila, you've got to tell your story. The story that's out there is not the truth. Here you have done so much work, and you have been erased out of a very important chapter in your life. And as I wrestled with it and had to find the right person to help me write this and to really dig into my brain and my past and really help me understand what I had gone through, because it was trauma. I had been suffering from post-traumatic stress through abuse, emotional abuse, severe emotional abuse. But I kept going. I had a resiliency, and I needed to keep going in order to save myself. But what people don't realize are the arts is what really saved me. I mean, the work that I did with you, and that was right after the divorce, you really helped me a lot. Just that 47 days down in New Orleans shooting this movie. But my first act in life was a concert violinist. And from that point on, the violin was just so much a part of my life. And as you'll read in the book, the trauma started in the first act of my life, with my father suddenly leaving and finding my mother on the floor. And
I want to interrupt. I want to talk. Where is that violin? Did you find it? Have you now? By the way, Sheila's the first black billionaire.
Yeah.
Ever. Sheila, did you? And you sold the violin, if I recall in the book, you sold the violin for...
Well, at that time, that violin was worth about $35,000, $40,000.
Yep. Did you ever get it back?
No. Because I had to sell that violin. We were getting BET started, and we needed the rent money for the offices. And my mother had mortgaged the house for this violin. I did not have the heart to tell her that I had done this, but I had to do it. You know, you learn to take risk in life. And I had to do this to get the company started. So I sold the violin so that we could pay the rent on these offices. And I later did buy another violin. But there were just some things, there's some sacrifices you have to make if it's something you really, really believed in. Because you have to understand, BET got started during the time when it was the birth of all of cable. And that was CNN, Nickelodeon, MTV, you name it. But the reason why that company became so important, because African Americans did not have a voice. They didn't have anything or a channel or anything that was representing them. The only thing we had was Ebony Jet, print media. But there was nothing in the television side that was really carried our voice. And so I really believed in the mission of getting BET started. And I was willing to make those sacrifices. And I was really willing to push my ex-husband out there to be the face and to really support him. I was the good wife that eventually got erased.
I wanna, before we talk about your being erased, I wanna talk about the opening of the book and your dad and everything. You know,
Yeah.
I think what I connected to most was just my dysfunction, though I don't know that I could ever write or be brave enough to write what it is that you wrote.
You could do it.
You think?
I think it would be healing for you.
Really?
I really do, because
Anything to
I've
keep me
even
off the
seen,
sauce.
but I also saw in your work the trauma that you've been through.
Yeah.
It's come through in your film work.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know I felt that, but I could feel it, and I
But
knew
this,
it.
this book it blew my mind, because I thought you came from the perfect African American, looking at you, looking at what you've accomplished. I thought, oh my goodness, this is a black woman that has come from, the father was a doctor.
Yeah.
You know, it just like, it seemed like it was just the perfect family. And I think when I got the first, like, whoa, something isn't right, was when he threw you, when you went to jump in his arms,
Yeah.
and he let you fall.
Yes.
And he said, let that be a lesson to you.
Yeah, don't trust anyone.
Don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know
And
whether
I
I like
think-
that so much.
I didn't like it at all. I was shocked. And I will tell you,
How
a
old
few
were you?
weeks later, I was in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I was getting ready to go into high school. And, no, I was a sophomore in high school. I'm trying to think. Because I will tell you something, that was sort of the prelude of when he was getting ready to leave. He just suddenly just up and left us. And what you don't understand is women back then had so few rights. Once he left, and you know, he was one of 8 African-American neurosurgeons in the country. So we were like up here in society. And once he left, we lost all our friends. No one wanted to be in our lives anymore. My mother had no credit cards. She didn't have a bank account. And she couldn't get child support. I suddenly had to grow up quickly. And this went on for about a year, and I think it just played on her and played on her. I had a job at JCPenney mopping floors. And coming in one night, my brother's screaming, something's wrong with Mom. She literally had a nervous breakdown and it collapsed on the floor and was foaming at the mouth.
This is how you open the book, which is,
Yes.
by the way, so cinematic. For those of you that haven't read it, it's a movie. Sheila, I see it. I see it. No, I do. But like she come, and so I guess I wanted to ride along with your father, and what I didn't understand about this black man was how he could leave the kids and never look back. And I think I broke down in tears when you went to the hospital. I think his brother was sick.
Yeah.
And he's there, and you hadn't seen him in 3 or 4 years.
That's right.
And he looks at you, and you've been giving him Christmas gifts, trying to get his love and attention.
Right.
And he gets to you, not seeing you in 3 or 4 years, and he starts berating you for the gifts that he gave. So I need to understand, like, how a father can be so supportive of his family, and then just the rug is yanked from under.
This was the tragic thing about it. And what has happened, that particular theme is what has followed me through my life, even through my marriage. It was that same kind of coldness, just detachment, lack of empathy that just really hurt.
Had you been to therapy?
Not then.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Because you married that.
I know.
Yeah.
That
Isn't it
was the
something
thing.
we are our parents' children?
We are. And you know, I swore that when I saw my mother on the floor that I never ever wanted to be put in that position. And sure enough, I married into that same sort of scenario. And the red flags were right there. My mother said, Sheila, wrong person. My teachers, red flags, wrong person. But I love him. I want to be there for him.
But did you love him?
I really did. He never loved me.
What a complicated relationship. What a real complicated relationship.
It's called narcissism.
Mm.
That's what it is. It's the deadliest of all personalities. It really is.
I love that you felt, and I picked that up on the set of The Butler, you know, that you are so humble, and you know, you write that you felt like you still feel like an outsider with your peers, and I do too. You know, I'm not comfortable in public. I don't do well. I squirm with my peers. You know, I don't want to be around my peers. Why is that?
Because we're creative types. We're artists. I think we're outliers. We're different. I knew that from the very beginning. I had moved 13 times before I settled outside of Chicago. And so I never fit in. This was all the way until I was 9 years old. So that foundation had already been established. And the only way that I could get to know myself was through music and through the arts. And the other thing that was happening, being as fair as I am, I was not accepted by either side.
And I love what you talk about that. That's so real. You talk about colorism in a way that, you know, and I remember in high school and in junior high school that the light-skinned girls got beat up. The light-skinned boys got beat up. The gay boys, the light-skinned boys, they were bullied on.
Right.
And you talk about that so openly, and so and I felt for you.
Yeah. And I just remember, especially in high school, you know, and this was...
But you understand that there was jealousy there, you know what I mean? You were able to...
Yeah, I didn't know it then.
Mm-hmm.
But as I look back on it, that's exactly it. Because even in BET, we got criticized where all the light-skinned girls and men were on camera. The darker skin were behind the camera. And this was an issue that was really reminded us every single day. And that's what was going on. So I just never really felt comfortable, and especially in college. That was during the Black Power movement. See, I was
with
also...
the afros and the...
Yeah, you know, I went to school with Fred Hampton. So, I mean, he's from Maywood, and... but that Black Power movement, especially on campus, I just didn't fit in. Mm-hmm. And I remember the university coming to me, says, can you be a mediator? I said, I can't be a mediator. I don't understand everything that's going on here. So, you know, it was a very awkward situation. And I remember a white sorority, Chi Omega, wanted to rush me. And I said, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Now, I could have gone to a black sorority. I just was not a sorority person because I just never felt like I fit in anywhere. Mm-hmm. You know, I was the only African-American in the music school in the Fine and Applied Arts. I was the first African-American cheerleader at the University of Illinois. And, you know, that's just the way I rolled. And I'll tell you something else that happened. This is a funny. So when I was a cheerleader, I was really fighting to get black
What they
women.
call you, Jelly?
Jelly hips. Yeah.
Jelly hips, baby.
So anyway.
Miss Johnson's jelly hips.
Well, I could wiggle, you know.
Come on.
But anyway, we had our first black homecoming queen contestant. And it's called tapping, where the cheerleaders go around. And we had a guy who was Chief Illini Wick. He's not there anymore. But anyway, and we had candles. And I remember going to the AKA house, and I was so excited that this one first African-American girl was tapped to be onto the homecoming queen court. She was excited too. She grabbed me and hugged me, and I lit her hair on fire. And I had to throw her down, but I was so embarrassed. So embarrassed. It hit the newspaper, black cheerleader, black homecoming queen, and I light her on fire. It was an accident. That fro just went up in flames.
That was really, really funny.
Yeah.
You meet Bob in college.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I actually met him. The university would put certain freshmen together with upperclassmen, and they'd take us off for a week it was kind of an indoctrination camp. He was assigned to me, and from the moment he was assigned to me, he was glued to me.
Were you attracted to him?
No, not at all. But
what attracted you to him? Because here's the thing, here's the thing, he was an astute businessman. He's gregarious, and he's a good salesperson. He understands business. Did that attract you or no?
No, because I didn't see any of that then. I think what attracted me to him, he was smart. That I knew. And when I look at it now, it was all about narcissism. He was very, it wasn't affectionate. He was very, I don't know what no, he wasn't demonstrative. He just was charming, you know. And I said, this man's going to go somewhere. And they're just
You instinctively knew that.
I instinctively knew that. And then he was also, he paid a lot of attention to me. And this is complicated because what I came out of my family life, I was looking for love. I was looking for companionship. I wanted to be loved. I felt so unloved after what my father had done. And just him paying attention to me and being there. I mean, he really did take care of me in a sense that he made sure that I was comfortable at this very large university. And this gets very complicated. These are very complicated situations that women can get into. You know, and you got to look at the big picture. I was making all the wrong moves based on the way I grew up. I was looking for love. I wanted someone to want me and to love me. So that's what was going on.
You know, you say that people didn't know. I think people inside knew. I think people understood that you had a specific vision for BET.
Right.
That was the word in Hollywood, back, you know, when I arrived, that you had a specific vision and that you didn't really want to do the hoochie mama or all of that they were going in that direction. So I think that you got it wrong there a little bit. People that knew really did know that you were trying to do, you were trying to create a news station with information for black people in a way that hadn't been done for us before. And talk a little bit about that.
So people were saying that they knew I was doing that?
That you were attempting to.
I had no idea. No one ever told me that.
Yeah. I mean, when I met you, that was the one thing I knew about you.
Right.
When I met you for the Butler. I didn't share that
well,
with you
the thing
until
that
now.
happened, once we were able to get BET up on the air, and we started out with only 2 hours of programming a week. But what was happening, we could not get advertisers. Advertisers pay the bills. That is what was happening. We could not even get hair care products to even buy into our vision. What started happening, and I wanted to do news programming to really talk about issues out there that were happening in the black community. But what then happened, if you remember, MTV would not play any black videos. That was our opening. So we were able to bring the video market to BET, and suddenly the eyeballs fell onto the network. And that's when the advertisers started to buy in. Now, for the first 8 months or so, the videos were terrific. It was just the art of storytelling through music and dance. They were beautiful. About into the 9th or 10th month, things started going south. And what I was seeing up on the screen were young girls, the way they were dancing provocatively. It bothered me a lot. It bothered me so much that when you turn the volume down, what are you looking at on the screen? The thing that also bothered me, there were so many young girls that are looking at these shows, at our videos, and they weren't separating out what they were watching and what they were carrying back into the streets. So what I decided to do was to do a show called Teen Summit.
Yeah, it was great. Isn't it great?
So I started Teen Summit. Jeff Lee was my producer, and I came up with the concept of actually bringing in 25, I call them my posse members. These young people were really the cream of the crop from the high schools and churches around. We would get together on Friday after school and put the show together. We shot live on Saturday. We had a theme that they worked on because they really, really knew what was going on in the schools. And the whole purpose of that was to really teach these young people how to watch TV in a smart way. They needed to understand what they were seeing on the screen was not the way they were going to behave once they got out in public. And we came up with just some great themes for every one of our shows. They had something called checkerboard dating. You know, that's interracial.
What's that?
It's interracial dating.
Oh, okay.
And how to handle that, and, you know, are your friends going to be cool about it? They came up with all this. I just had to sit back, and we would shoot the show. Now, I did have advisors behind the curtain, you know, in case anything went south. We also did a show where the kids were talking about how the parents don't really listen to them, and they needed to improve their conversation. So what we would do is I'd bring some of the parents on the show, and I said, okay, you have the floor. What do you want to talk to your parents about? And when they opened up, this one parent, the daughter was saying, says, Mom, I'm having sex with my boyfriend. And the woman passed out. I was like, oh my God. I said, but this proved my point. And, you know, and then we would talk to the parents saying, look, you've got to start opening up communication with your kids. Now, what happened shortly after that? Bill Clinton came to me and said, look, you can come to me, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We started the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program. Teen pregnancy was getting out of control in the United States. And so it was, again, a matter of educating and talking with these young people. And this was what was really important. So we took the show on the road. And teen pregnancy rates started going down because I was working with Brookings Institute, and we really were dealing with these subjects. And these kids, girls were saying we got pregnant because we didn't know any better. We were not told that you can get pregnant still standing up and, you know, going on. That was the truth. Mm-hmm. You know, yes, you can. So we had to talk to them about that. But that show lasted for 11 years.
Great. It was really great.
11 years. It
People
won
don't
every
really
award.
associate that with, you know, people choose to not remember that about BET and your involvement with that.
Yeah, and my ex-husband wanted to shut it down because we were successful. And so I was able to go to the Kaiser Family Foundation and got a grant to keep it on.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
Yeah.
And then y'all became public. And that's where the real money started coming in.
We were the first African-American company to go on the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I want to talk about that, because that was another moment where I cried for you, and I had no idea. So it's IPO signing time, everything, and he tells you to stay home.
Yeah, he wouldn't let me come up to ring the bell, and I helped him start that company. this is the kind of stuff I had to deal with. You know, or I would be going to the White House and I'm dressed and ready to go. He would come in 20 minutes before we were to leave and look at me up and down and say, I'm not going out with you looking like that. And I had this woman that worked for me, Miss Mary. Miss Mary's from Mississippi, tall, statuesque woman. And she kept telling me ahead of time, she says, you know, Ms. J, I've been having dreams about a snake. I mean, she was so intuitive. And that night, when he said he wasn't going out with me dressed like that, her foot hit the floor. I thought it almost went through it. He walks out the door, because you know he had someone else in the car. Mm-hmm. So anyway, she says, I now know who the face of that snake is.
Sheila, I'm really proud of you to, you know, Sheila doesn't discuss, she's a very private woman, one of the classiest women that I know. And I'm shocked, I'm surprised that you opened up like this, because you've been quiet about it all these years. And it is, what do you want women and men to learn from this book? I mean, that was my final question, but I got other questions I want to ask prior to that, but I jumped ahead.
Well, it's really important, you know, and I've been going over it and going over it. Why am I doing this? And I realized that I had to do something because everybody else was talking. And I needed the truth out there. And it's not about them. It's more about me and my healing process of what I went through. I wrote this book to give women the courage. I want to inspire them to learn from what I've gone through. Not so much to repeat these same mistakes, because the adversity that I went through, honestly, it was painful. And to this day, I'm still suffering from post-traumatic stress. But it's what's feeding me to keep going.
Yeah.
More than anything, I'm trying to give everybody the courage to face their whatever toxic demons that are going on in their life. How do you deal with this? How do you move on? Now, I will be very candid and frank that once I got out of the marriage, I went through a lot of therapy, a lot. I was suffering from severe depression. I just didn't know which way I was going to go. But once I got out of the marriage, a miracle happened. For some reason, the weight just lifted off of me. I was able to get out of Washington, D.C., because not only was I going through this, and it was very public, it was in the Washington Post. People loved what they were seeing and reading. And I tried to get out of there, and what I realized, I was lonely. I had nobody to talk to, because the people that I wanted to talk to, they had abandoned me. And not only that, they said, you can't get out of this marriage. You're the king and queen of media. And this happens in the black culture.
Did you believe that? Did you think that why didn't you leave? Why did it take you so long?
It's a timing issue. I had to get my money out of that company. I wasn't that dumb.
You had to get the money.
No, it was a timing issue, and it worked out well. I've never prayed so much in my life. But I will tell you what happened. Once I confronted the ex about the affair and let him know that I knew about it, he said, you're fired. He fired me from the company. I said, you can't fire me. We both started this company. My name's on this too. And I said, you know what you're going to do? It's time to sell. And then I remember being in New York City in Times Square, and there's the ticker tape thing going around. BET sells for $3 billion. I'm like, praise the Lord.
Wow. Wow. When the affair happened, you know.
Affairs.
But the one affair.
Oh.
The one affair is the person that's sort of known for BET right now, Deborah Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, was she your friend? Was she?
I hired that woman. Not only that, you know, I again stood behind her, and I couldn't quite figure out what she was doing in the company. So she was a lawyer, and everything that she did wasn't very successful. And it wasn't until they started doing the ring-dang-doodle that I come to work.
Sheila is really, Sheila, you done came out, baby.
Well, let me tell you, I would come into work and I would have employees saying, "Girl, I'm praying for you." I'm like, "What are you praying for me?" They said, "Just keep your eyes and your ears open, but I'm praying for you." And then one day I heard Bob's secretary, they were getting connecting rooms. I'm like, "God damn it, now I know what's going on." And I let this play out. Then the rumors got hot and heavier, and I got calls from the kids' school.
I mean, how did it feel going to work with all of that?
I don't remember. I was so traumatized and betrayed. And I kept talking to him about it. I said, "That woman's got you by the balls." I said,
Sheila, this is an episode that's better than anything I've ever written on Empire or anything. I couldn't make this up.
no, but I said, "You're putting yourself in a bad place." I said, "You keep digging your hole deeper and deeper. I don't even know why you're doing this." Now, that's a whole nother psychological thing that's happening. I don't know why this was happening, except she was going to get to the top horizontally. So I'm just saying that, and she made it. That's the part that hurt more than anything. For him to sacrifice the company as a supposed leader, this was just stupid stuff.
Like, what's fascinating too is how do you trust again? It's your husband for many, many years. How do you, and then she marries the judge that divorced them. Come on, it's all gonna be.
Well, now, see, this goes back to the arts. Well, I was teaching at Sidwell Friends School and only made $7,200 a year. I needed to make some more money. And there was a part that opened at the West End Circle Theater Club. You know Denise Nichols?
Denise.
Yeah, she was supposedly in the play. I don't know. She was supposed.
She was married to Bill Withers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, she was called back to Hollywood. So the part opened up. I went down and auditioned and got the part, and it was the part of a prostitute. And it's called Ceremonies in Dark Old Men. It was written by Lonnie Elder, so you can look it up. But it was a great 20-minute part on stage that I made 4 times the amount of money doing that, and we ran 98 performances. So there was one other guy in the theater, in the play, that was local, and he played the part of the son of Russell, who was making the bootleg whiskey. So Theo was there, I was there, and there were only 2 women in the play. It was, I forgot Betty's last name. But anyway, we were the 2 women in the play. Now, at intermission, I was back in the green room practicing my violin, and he was reading, and we would talk every now and then. The play closed after 98 performances. I was married now. I did not do anything wrong. And
But you knew he was hitting on you. Was he hitting on you?
I don't know. I don't think so.
This is what I'm saying. Sheila is very naive, but she's very smart, too.
I was naive. So anyway, I go to get my divorce, and I walk into the chambers, and I look at him, and I look at my lawyer, and I said, "I think I know the judge." He goes, "No, you don't know the judge." He says, "We're going to get through this divorce." So anyway, 25 minutes later, we get everything done, and divorce is granted. And he says, "Now you can go up and talk to him." So I said, "Your Honor, by any chance, do you remember me?" And he goes, and he kept looking down at his papers, and he goes, "Oh, yes, I do." So anyway, I'm looking to see if he had a ring on his finger. I didn't see a ring or anything. But anyway, I wasn't going after him then. But what I was intrigued by him, that here was a man who was an actor, and now he's chief judge of all of Arlington County. I said, you know, this is a smart man. So anyway, I was president of the Washington International Horse Show, and I sent him an invitation to come to a gala that I was having there in the Caps Arena. And I said, to the Honorable William T. Newman and guest. His mother told him, you are not taking anybody today. He says, I know how you felt about this woman years ago. And sure enough, we started dating 3 weeks after that. But the thing that really touched me, he went through therapy with me. He knew more than I did about what was going on in my life. So this was a man who really knew what was going on.
What I love, too, about this relationship is how you talk about ultimately trusting again.
Yeah.
You were in Paris, and he just said, you know, you gotta trust, or something like that. I forget, but it took you forever to learn to trust
and
again.
And to really know about love. He really knew what love meant. I felt safe for the first time in my life. Yeah. So, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
I love you, Sheila Johnson.
I love you, Lee.
Anybody got any questions?
My question is simple. What's next?
I'm going to continue to grow my company. I have 7 hotels now. You know, we didn't talk about the third act.
Oh, we didn't even talk about the third act. But she'll talk about it now.
See, once I got out of the toxic area of my life, and I thought I was going to kind of stand still for a while, as my mother said, you just need to sit. You just need to sit and figure your life out. Well, it's not in my DNA. So I kept going, moved to Middleburg, Virginia, was going through the town, and what infuriated me more than anything, there was a gun shop that was on the right-hand side in the middle of the town that had a Confederate flag. It made me so angry every time I went through there. So I finally called my attorney and a real estate agent, and I said, I need to buy a building. And he says, why? And I said, because I can. And then I explained what this building was, and he goes, okay, you're going to buy that building. It was a symbol of hatred that I just couldn't deal with. And if I was going to live there, I didn't want to see that. So I bought it and turned it into a wonderful market, you know, which people love. I just knew from the beginning, and being in that town, that things needed to change. This town was financially bankrupt. It needed a new water sewage treatment plant. And I saw an opportunity there to not only rebuild my life, but also change a community. And
well,
so
they fought you.
Oh, they fought me for 10 years.
Tooth and nail.
My life was threatened. My kids' lives were threatened. I had to go through hearings and listen to me being disparaged by so many. You know, they said, you're destroying our way of life. I'm like, what is your way of life?
Robert Duvall said he wasn't coming. Has he come yet?
He still has not come.
Oh, wow.
He still has not set foot in that resort. But to make a very long story short, and that's why you have to read the book, I bought the late Pamela Harriman's property. It was 340 acres. And on that property, I built an incredible resort there. It is now in its 5th year of a Forbes 5-star rating, and AAA 5-star. The spa has been rated 5 stars. And because of that resort, it is now the wealthiest historic town in the state of Virginia.
That's great.
That's what's happened. And since then, we have picked up 6 more hotels. My latest acquisition has been the Mandarin in Washington, D.C., which is now a Salamander. We are part of Aspen now, the Aspen Institute. We've taken that over. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. You like Monopoly. It's like Black Monopoly.
So we are renovating Aspen Institute, and we are taking over the hospitality side. And I work very closely with Dan Porterfield on ideas. They just hired Tina Brown. I need
Wow.
to get you up there because we want to
Okay.
do some film. My
sure.
friends over there, we're taking them up to Aspen.
Okay.
But it's something that we really want to start bringing the arts back to the Ideas Festival.
I love that you are so focused on the arts. And even after reading her book now, I understood why she invested in me and she invested in the Butler. And she's such, she fights for artists. And it's a beautiful thing. It's rare that we have people in your black people that are in your position to support artists. So I love you for that.
No, it's really important because arts have been taken out of the schools, and that is why we're having the crime rate that we're having. That's why kids are doing drugs. You know, it's really interesting because I own these sports teams. That's a whole nother chapter, too.
How many? 3. Yeah.
I have the WNBA's Washington Mystics, the Washington Wizards, and the Capitals. So, but what's happening, and I've talked with people, maybe you can answer this question. I asked my girls, I'm not going to ask the men, why are they getting tattoos? They said they're addicted to the pain. So this is something I've been thinking about, and I was doing a podcast with Nancy Giles last week, and we were talking about this kind of addiction. And if you watch what's happening between drugs, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I want to get that straight. If you want to get tattoos, that's fine, whatever floats your boat. But I'm just saying, we need to start paying attention to what is happening out there and why the kids are doing what they're doing. They're trying to fulfill a hole. They're missing something. And I think it's because the arts have been taken away from them. They have no way of expressing themselves. So now they're expressing themselves with body art. So there's things that are happening.
Hi,
Hi.
Ms. Sheila. I just want to say thank you so much for being who you are. I went to college at Bowie State, so going into D.C. and seeing the BET building was always a highlight. But also this summer, I went to Aspen, Colorado, because I'm an Aspen Institute Rising Leader. So to know that I walked those grounds and that you have ownership on that land just means so much. So my question is actually about your faith and how you anchor yourself. You talked a lot about that, about praying and kind of coming out of that season of depression. And I guess, how did your faith help you see yourself, or how did your faith help you see yourself the way God created you to be and to ultimately step into your full potential?
You know, this is interesting because I've always gone to church. Then I stopped going when I was married to him because he didn't want to go. But anyway, it's my mother that brought me back into it. And she would work with me. She would open the Bible, and she says, these are areas that you need to keep reading and reading and reading. And I started doing that, and I would cry, and I would cry. But I was starting to understand more. It was more just trying to understand who I am. I didn't know who I was. I had lost sight of who I was because I was controlled by a very powerful personality. And I just lost myself completely. And I have to give credit to my mother. And she kept saying, it's time for you to get your power back. And that's when she started working on me. Yeah.
Hi, Sheila. Thank you
Yes.
so much. My question for you is, for the people who have grown up in abuse and never felt love in the way that you described, can you please describe what it feels like to feel loved and whole, loved and healed, and why it's worth still trying to obtain those things?
It's a really totally different feeling. And there's, once I married Bill, and I felt, well, even before I married him, there was just things that he did for me. Like I got really sick, and he made me chicken soup from scratch and drove it all the way out to the farm. And there was just touches like that he did, and I knew that he cared. It's the way he talked to me, the way he looked at me. But then there are times when I look at him and I said, I would ask him, I said, Bill, do you love me? He goes, of course I love you. And for moments, I would feel like I didn't deserve that love.
That's really powerful in the book.
Yeah.
That you didn't feel that you deserved to be loved by this man.
Yeah. Because of the way it had been inscripted in my mind that I was not deserving of love. That I was ugly, I was either too fat, I was too light. I mean, this stuff I had to live with on a daily basis. I was humiliated in front of people, and people are mean, and they would buy into it. And the saddest part is my kids would listen to this. And I could start stuff coming out of their mouth in the way they were talking to me. And I wouldn't say anything. I would just go off and cry. And I said, I'm just a failure all the way around. And that's the way I felt like. I was just a failure. And this is what I had to work on through therapy. I had to work on me. I had to, as my mother said, get your power back. But one thing I never lost sight of was the value of hard work and my vision of what I did want to get done. And I don't know what drove me and kept me going doing that. You help me, Lee.
Yeah.
I'm really happy you wrote this book. I happened to be on a plane. I was in an event down the street from you, and the plane's sponsoring a equestrian event 3 weeks ago, and on my way back, I just casually pulled a magazine out of the United, and they did this big article on you, which is why I'm here tonight. And there were several things in there that really kind of impressed me. But the deepest one was the birth of your son. I thought that was such a tragic ceremony.
That's another thing that happened. I lost a child at birth. The two children that I have, I adopted. I just could not have children, and I knew, see, this was the other thing that I did. I wanted children, because I thought maybe that would bring us together as a family. I adopted these two children, and he promised he would be there for me. That man was absent. I raised these two kids myself. I mean, he popped in when he needed to. But the one time I got pregnant, that was a miracle. I don't know. Carried the baby full term, and sure enough, he died an hour after he was born. And again, I felt like such a failure. And I remember Walter Fauntleroy coming to the hospital, and he brought me a book, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. And he prayed with me. And I said, I just can't seem to win. I just couldn't seem to win.
And what you do is you write it's so nuanced what you write about Bob, because just when I hate him, I fall in love with him for being there with you and his pain. You write so beautifully about his pain of losing that child.
That's the first time I ever saw him cry. And he took the bull by the horns, and he planned the burial and everything. Because usually sometimes when that happens, they just take the baby and it's gone. But we wanted to have a funeral for him.
And that's what I love about the book, is that you don't, and I believe this too about people, I don't think that everybody's bad, I don't think that everybody's good. We walk in this gray zone of life, and I think that you've written him so exquisitely honest.
Yeah.
You know, because just when I can't bear it, you make him human.
Well, I'm telling the truth. I mean, there were a lot of bad moments, but there were a few bright moments. Just when I thought I'd have a little hope there that we could keep going. And then, bam, it would stop.
I look forward to the premiere of Sheila by Lee Daniels. So we know that childhood trauma repeats itself and takes the wheel of your life if you're not able to grab a hold of it. And you talked about your children witnessing some traumas, and traumas experienced or lived can repeat themselves. What guidance do you give to people so that they can step outside of that particular experience to tread a new road?
That's the other reason why I wrote this book. I don't think my children really understand what I went through. And I don't think they understood the life that I had. I'm hoping, I think my daughter's read it, because she finally said, "Mom, you're a badass." My son, I'm not quite sure. I'm there for them, like you wouldn't believe. I'm a grandmother now. I tell them daily how much I love them. I have always been there for those kids. I have made sure that they had the best education. I showed up at the soccer tournaments, football games, equestrian events, whatever I had to do. I sacrificed whatever time that I had and needed for myself to be there for them. That's the only way that I can protect them. I can only do the best I can. I'm going to tell you something. I got to read this to you all. There was a woman that was estranged from her mother and wouldn't speak to her for years. She read my book, and then she emailed me. She emailed me. Because I'd just gotten to know her. And she wrote this to me. She said, "I'm getting on a plane, and I'm going to reconnect with my mother because of your book." She says, "I think we blame our mothers for not being stronger. I always looked at my mother as being weak. I asked her why she didn't leave him or why she didn't do a better job at protecting us from his abuse. I am now understanding that my mother is one of the strongest women that I know. It takes time. My father was a narcissist, and it wasn't until he died in 2019 that I realized the toll of his abuse on my mother's mental health. Your children will understand one day, but that's not your burden. You did the best you could with what you had, and you've done a fantastic job. Your children will always think the parents could have done a better job." And that really touched me.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so now she has reconnected with her mother. So I get so much mail now from women who have been through similar circumstances. And the only thing I can do is I just hope that I've given women the courage to really look at themselves and ask the question, who am I? What moves me? What gets me out of bed in the morning? What is my passion for life? And I think more than anything, if I can really touch so many women in that way, where they can improve their lives and feel better about themselves, then I've done a good job.
Right on.
I applaud you for taking the time to share your transformation. You're an artist, it seems to me. I'm from Washington, D.C. as well, and so I recognize BET as a history lesson for all of us. I'm just curious as to whether or not you would consider creating a platform for transformation for a society who lives under a construct, a social construct that doesn't serve any of us for the most part, right. To allow them to practice, as we all must, to create something else, to create what else is possible for our lives.
You know, I've been thinking about it, and I've talked to several people about it. I think we as African Americans, as women, we don't talk to one another. We do not want to face, as a culture, the issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I think we have to start being honest. We have to be supportive of one another and to understand how we can continue to survive and get stronger. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Lee?
I think so.
But this is something that I really realized, the pain that I was going through, I could not find not one person that I could talk to that could understand what I've been through. They would sweep it under the rug, and they go, oh, you're just imagining this.
Well, because Sheila, you're a billionaire, so they think that you have a privileged life, and they don't understand, ultimately, we're all a generation away from the projects.
Right.
We come from slaves, and through that comes generational trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a product from that, and most people in here are products of that.
But we have got to start talking to one another.
Mm.
We as a race have got to become stronger. We have to start communicating more and just facing the facts of what's happening in our lives.
Sheila, thank you for your time. And
I see your Howard sweatshirt.
Oh yes, I'm a proud Howard alum.
Well, how many DC people are
Hey,
here? My
no.
God, you all take a charter in here?
I've also visited the Salamander Resort, absolutely beautiful. I had an amazing time there. You are a total badass, so own that. And, but you've accomplished so much. I have just one question. What are you the most proud of?
I am most proud of my children. I really am. The way they've got such a great work ethic, because even though they have grown up in privilege, they're working very hard at what they do. My son is a menswear designer. His line is in Saks Fifth Avenue now. He commutes to Milan. My daughter was on the Nations Cup team, was trying to get on the Olympic team, couldn't make it on because there was someone else with higher visibility that got on. And that's life.
Kids, they're my proudest accomplishment.
Yeah,
my kids are.
They really are. And I would say next in line was just myself, is rebuilding me and being able to move forward to create a new life, because I have created a whole new life for myself.
I'm a doctor of psychology, and I still continue to see that over 95% of my patients are of other races. So what do you think is some of the issues or what you have encountered where African Americans are not okay with therapy, even though they have been traumatized? And me, I've traveled all over the world for the US government, diagnosed in the military with, PTSD and trauma and all of that. But I don't see a lot of us showing up for therapy, And the other question is, how do you help our community to not just live in the trauma and keep using the trauma for why they are not excelling today? Right? So that's the other thing, is because I also see that a lot where it's because of my past, because of my mother, because of my father, because I grew up in this, because my dad was an alcoholic. This is why I am the way I am today. This is why I chose this person. So how do you help with that situation?
Well, first of all, those kind of issues that are in your family, they shouldn't define you. I think so often, and as Lee said, this started back in slave time, where we were demeaned by society. And we played into it. We as a race, we should not be ashamed to get help. And I think that's the other thing I'm trying to say in the book. If I could go and have 5 years of therapy, and I still check back with my therapist when I'm questioning myself, it helps. It really helps. And if there's anything, we need to start talking about that. There's real mental health issues out there, but we as an African American race have got to start facing up. If whatever roadblocks we're hitting, you need to talk about them. You need to get help. And that's the only way you can be healthy in mind, body, spirit, and to be able to move forward. If I hadn't gotten therapy, I would have been trapped in that prison, that toxic prison. There's no way that I would be on this stage tonight. There's no way I could have written this book. But I had to make the hard decision that I was going to let it go raw, let it hang out there. And I did it for a reason, not only for myself, but for many other readers out there. To start facing whatever is holding you back in life. Don't let other people define how you're going to live. And that's what's really important. So continue the work that you're doing.
I'm so inspired for you as a businesswoman, because I consider myself a rising businesswoman, hopefully to follow your footsteps. And I'm just curious, what inspires you during each of your different business ventures? You have such a diverse portfolio. I'm just curious how you pursue those opportunities.
You know, I don't think about it too much. I just know what I want to do. I have good instincts. And I like to have fun. I think having fun, that's when I can come up with all my creative ideas. And what you all have to understand, because I have friends out there in the audience that I love and admire. When I decided to build a hospitality company, I just didn't want to do a hotel. I didn't want to just be another Hyatt or a Montage or anything like that. I wanted to build a hotel with purpose and to give my guest experiences. So one of the things we did is we started a Middleburg Film Festival. And I've got so many of my friends right here in the audience that are on our film advisory board that have really helped us make this film festival so exciting. And the reason why I wanted to start this film festival was that town that had just put me through hell. I needed to open up that community. I needed to open up their minds. So I have the vessel, or the vehicle, whatever you want to look at it. I have a resort. Why don't I make it work other than just people staying there? Why can't I give them experiences and also educate them? So when we started this, Lee, I don't know if you remember this, we did open up with Nebraska, and we had Bruce Dern there. We also did the Butler.
Yeah.
Do you remember that white man in the front row? When we went up on the stage.
What white man in the front row? They always in the front row.
No, but I'm saying, no, this was really something. This man was crying. I mean, it's not no boo-booing. Yeah, after we remember we went up on the stage and
yeah.
And I said, "What's wrong?" And he kept saying, "Please forgive me."
I do remember.
That, to me,
yeah.
was the answer as to why we started this film festival. To expose that community to people of color, to artists, to let them see us and what we could do. After each one of our films, we have panel discussions where we really get into the nitty-gritty with the directors of why they, wrote the film or directed the film. These are learning experiences. I have so many CEOs that come to me and they go, "We're having problems dealing with this DEI and, this equity and inclusion stuff," and they're uncomfortable talking about it. We do it the fun way, and we do it through the arts. And so the film festival has really become so important, not only to just the community, but I think across the country. I mean, we're recognized now where we really tackle tough issues. And we bring in, all directors, both men and women. We celebrate them. We celebrate the composers that do the music behind the scenes with the films. It's just one of the most exciting parts of the festival. The other thing I did, and I started this 3 years ago, and this was born out of COVID. There were so many African American chefs that were losing their restaurants. Now, I'm in the hospitality business. So there was one chef in particular who had started a restaurant called Kith Ken, Kwame Anawachi. He has Tatiana in New York. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
You better get there.
Is it good?
It's right at Lincoln Center. It's the #1 restaurant in New York City. Tatiana.
Tatiana.
It's right at Lincoln Center, David Geffen Hall. He lost his restaurant. I was so angry. And Kwame's the type, he ain't gonna sit still. And this is what I like about him. He went straight to the Washington Post to tell his story. I read it. I called him 15 minutes later. I said, Kwame, you're coming with me. Kwame's going to be my chef at our hotel in D.C.
Oh, wow.
But more than anything, Kwame and I started what we call the family reunion. And this is where you come as family. I hope I get this right. You come as family and you leave as friends. What we do over 3 days is we talk about the food from the African diaspora. We have panel discussions in the morning. We bring in the bankers that they can talk to about financing and starting new restaurants. We are celebrating these African American chefs because they have been erased out of society, and especially in the culinary experience. And I'll tell you what else happened is I got Food and Wine behind this magazine. So Hunter comes, and I said, Hunter, I'm getting complaints you do Food and Wine event at Aspen. Carla Hall's upset because she and Kwame are the only 2 black folks up there. And I said, you gotta stop it. So he comes to everyone, and he's come to the family reunion. So last year at Aspen, at the end of the Food and Wine event, he had 4 African-American chefs up on the stage that had cooked for all the VIPs there. And they're all James Beard winners. You would have never known it. So Food and Wine's like, I now get it. I now get it. But we have to be advocates for our own selves. That we have to move and make things and change communities and change minds. And that's what's so important. And I have so much fun doing it because I see an opportunity not just to own hotels, but I use it as a power broker where I can bring people in. Even with owning teams, I bring my players in there. Okay, if they want to sign autographs, whatever. But I use it all to connect. I got to make it all work. It's like making a quilt and pulling it all together. And I'm not afraid to change the world. And that's what I want to do. We have got to start doing that.
Right on, Sheila. Walk through fire.
Oh, I
What?
really should tell them why I came up with the title.
Yeah, why did you come up with the title?
So, I bought a farm. I sound like out of Africa, right? I bought a farm. Anyway, it was owned by a man by the name of Bill Ildesacker, who lived there very briefly, and you're supposed to keep the name of the farm because it brings bad luck. But I didn't like the name of his farm.
What was the name of the farm?
It was Cotswold.
Huh?
Yeah, I didn't
What's
want
it
that.
called?
That farm was Cotswold.
Right.
And I said, I'm not taking that name. I don't care. I'm going to take a risk on this. I said, who had the farm before? And they said it was a man by the name of Bruce Sunland. And the name of the farm was Salamander. I met up with Bruce Sunland, and he told me the story of his life. Bruce Sunland was a fighter pilot that fought and was shot down over Nazi-occupied Belgium. His entire unit was captured into a POW camp. He was able to escape and went across Europe and got into Allied territory of France, fought briefly for the French resistance. The U.S. came to him and said, look, we got to rescue your unit out of this POW camp. We're going to give you the code name Salamander. So the French love salamanders. King Louis XIV used them all around his moat to protect him from an invasion or something. That's what he thought. So then anyway, he says, well, why are you giving me the code name Salamander? And they said, mythically, that animal is the only one that can walk through fire and still come out alive.
So that's how you got this.
Yeah.
Now the audio is the audio is incredible. If you want to hear a beautiful voice, it's Sheila's voice. She does the audio too, and it's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming tonight.
Thank you.